This is the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust. It's Wednesday, February 8th, 2023, and it is 5:01 p.m. And our first order of business is a call to order by roll call. Linda Escobedo.
Present.
Mike Lawson.
Present.
Rich Feely.
Present.
Carrie LaFleur.
Present.
And Keith Bergman present. All right, all five of us are here. We also have folks from the Concord Housing Development Corporation and from Concord Housing Authority, and many of our usual suspects, Ray Andrews, FinCom. We have Liz Rust and Marcia Rasmussen also on the call, so welcome. Next item is approval of minutes. I had sent out a draft set for January 26th. I don't know if we have a motion to approve. Motion
Second.
by Mike, second by Rich. Is there discussion? All right, so let's take a roll call on the motion to approve. Linda?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
Keith, aye. All right, so those are approved 5-0. Next is an update on the housing production plan. And I want to just say, and actually let me ask, who's got time constraints now? I know that some folks are here for just Liz, are you here for half an hour? Is that what
I'm here till just before 6 o'clock.
Oh, okay, very good. So we should, because what I'd like to do is we'll talk about housing production plan a bit, and then we will get into an update from the Concord Housing Development Corporation as the next item, and take up the Housing Authority after that. Under the topic of housing production plan, the trust is in the process of updating our guidelines and formalizing our application processes and forms for trust funds. And I invited a discussion with perhaps we could get a signal from Carrie. Carrie and I have had discussions about what town staff support we might be able to get for undertaking this process of updating our application processes and then really helping us administer the process. And I'm going to go off camera while I go and bring the glass of water in here that I just poured for myself. And if Carrie could perhaps talk about what level of support might be available so that we can have a general idea, and I'll be right back.
You want me to start while you step away?
Yeah, please. I'm just going to put up. I'm just going to. I'll be able to hear you. I just need to leave the room and come right back. But I'll hear you the whole time.
Oh, sure. So I think our best opportunity for additional staff support for this group really is with our incoming economic vitality manager. This is a new position. We're currently recruiting. We have a couple of very strong candidates, and a lot of the candidates that we've talked to actually have experience in housing, because it's common in communities to have an economic development and housing manager position together. So I think this is probably the best opportunity for a certain type of support, and I think we can see how it goes. And if we find there's more need for administrative support, then maybe we'll look to pull a few hours from somebody on staff. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time to sell, even when you have money to purchase time, but I think the new EVM is probably a great place to start. I would anticipate that person coming on board sometime in March. We're nearing the end of the recruitment process there.
That's good news.
Very good. Yeah, and I really appreciate that, Carrie. I think it can help us. What it caused me to sort of come to the realization that now's the time to ramp up is if the trust is going to have a balance of some $3 million by the end of town meeting, I think we have to step up our game of our ability to be ready when grant applications are coming, and we know that some will be coming. And in fact, the grants that we might likely get applications for will exceed the amount of available funds we have, just from some of the things that I think we'll hear about that are in the pipeline potentially. So we want to be ready. We want to be able to do justice to the funds that the town is entrusting us with. What was instructive for me, I've been listening to a lot of the meetings that we all attend, and at one point there was some discussion of things that are coming down the pipeline, and it just seemed like now would be an appropriate opportunity to just raise our hand and see what the town could provide. And I think because the town is at some level I heard Marcia say is sort of they're a regulatory process, they're a reviewer and not an applicant. And so I think we want to have staff who are working on the regulatory side. So when we get an application from an entity that there's the support staff that we go to are not necessarily the same folks that the applicant is going to. That to me sounded like a reasonable division of labor. There's a whole other set of skills that I think many of our groups want to talk about over time, not tonight necessarily, but how do we best ramp up so that collectively we have the housing development skill sets that we need to put a deal together and to take it all the steps and to do the analysis and all of that, again, to step up our game collectively. So I'd look forward to that discussion amongst all of us in the future. But I did want to bring it up tonight for the trust. And if it's, I guess I'd look for a cue from Kerry that under our bylaw, we are allowed to ask for the town manager's determination of what staff support, and would you be more comfortable if we took a vote, or is it fine to have it based on this discussion?
I don't feel the need for a vote.
Okay.
So I'm fine with this discussion.
Okay. Very good. I appreciate that very much, because it's I think it's going to help us all feel a lot more secure as we're going to be working, and we want to frankly make sure we've got a net below us on the high wire. So thank you for that. The other implementation matter that I wanted to mention is we talked a couple of meetings ago about getting all of our groups together for a Concord Housing Roundtable, perhaps in mid-March, where we're now defining the expanded Housing Roundtable participants as including also the Select Board, Planning Board, and Community Preservation Committee, as well as all of the housing entities. So so I don't know if there's a formal way for us to reach out all of those groups to pick a date or invite them, or just how that would go. It's been in our HPP says that
I just have to look at the big bulletin board.
could
Like, oh, okay, and I was just like, looking.
Leslie has the microphone on. And
Oh, I'm sorry.
mute yourself. Thanks so much. So I was wondering, and I guess I'd pose that to Liz, who is our support for convening the Concord Housing Roundtable, how we would go about asking, pulling all those groups together for a date in mid-March to all get together. And
So
appreciate.
usually I just query the chairs of the participants on a mutually agreeable date.
Okay, and that'll include this time planning board, select board, and
Yes. Mhm.
CPC as well. All right, great. So we'll look forward to that, and there'll be so much for us to talk about. So I get breathless every time I look at all there is in the housing production plan. So thank you very much.
Keith,
Yes,
if I could
that
just,
we,
yep, if I could just
Okay.
chime in on that. Certainly the more the merrier. I think frequently full boards or commissions attend that, and if that's the case, they post and convene. They open a meeting as a public meeting, but it's not necessary per se. If they don't have a quorum, I think we can
Right.
still proceed if one or more representatives short of a quorum can attend.
yeah, I think that can certainly, I think the word that we should get out to each of the groups is that we'd like them to come prepared to just talk about those strategies that their implementation leads on, and in fact the invite that goes out to them should probably identify which of those for example, the select board or the planning board or the leads on. Not that we would expect everyone to have updates on every strategy that the housing production plan assigns them, but at least if they did have any updates on ones that where they're the lead, it would be an opportunity for the chair to report in, or for a couple of members to do, just so that information can get out to them. With it's not the way the roundtable has been working up till now, that there's a specific task that's been added. In addition to hearing updates about what everyone's doing, we want to see which of the goals or strategies that are assigned to the various groups are being what progress is being made, and it's an opportunity to troubleshoot and share information.
So Keith, I think when we talked about this before, we had a specific date in mind. Do you recall, or does anybody recall when that was?
I think the date we picked had a conflict with a finance committee hearing, and we were going to figure out a better night.
I was just wondering if I could put a plug in for just even the first week of April, because by then we would be done with all of the town meeting public hearings, and that's usually a little bit of a slower time for select board, finance committee, and maybe others.
So April 1.
Even just sometime that first.
Do you want to just suggest which of those particular nights work the best for you, Carrie? And we can just sort of start there. I mean, there's a bunch of people here and can kind of see what actually works.
So
To float that out.
we typically been doing those on Wednesday evenings.
Mm-hmm.
So
Do you like the 5th?
Well, for sure, there's no select board or finance committee conflict with the
Okay,
When does the planning board usually meet? What night of the week?
Tuesday night.
Tuesdays.
So Wednesday looks like a good choice.
All
My
right, so
calendar says Passover, but I can't tell if it's the first full day or if it's
Begins at sundown.
yeah, I can't tell from this whether it's but in any event, that could be a conflict.
committee.
According to my calendar, it begins at sundown, so
Yeah.
it's presumably a problem.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
so do you want to stay with the Wednesday on the 12th? Or do you want to find a different date that first week?
Well, I think since we know the dates of the regularly scheduled meetings and they're not Wednesdays, I would suggest we just roll it to the 12th.
I think that's fine. That's a
Okay.
good
At what time are we planning to do this?
It'd be 7 o'clock.
okay. All right. So thank you. Let's go with that and see if that works for all of our participants. So thank you. Thanks, Liz. Thanks, Carrie. Thanks, everyone. April 12th at 7 p.m. Next, we'll hear updates from Assabet River, from the CHDC on Assabet River Bluff and Junction Village. And I guess first as a reminder, and I raised this a bit at the CHDC meeting I attended this morning. As we think about and hear updates on projects, one of the things that I'd really like us to be thinking about is that as of the end of the April town meeting, there will be some $3.5 million in available, accessible funds for affordable housing projects. 3 million of that will be in the trust fund. The CHDC is requesting $500,000 for Assabet. And as we consider what funds are needed and when to advance some of the projects that we'd like to do that are in the housing production plan, that 3.5 million is all that we'll have on the table, unless somehow there are ARPA funds that could be also put on the table. That 3.5 million is it until and unless another town meeting is convened. So that's just something to think about. We might also want to be thinking about when projects need funding, so that we can be aware of what the our cash flow pipeline looks like. But we have our two biggest projects that we're going to hear about from Lee Smith, and chair of the Concord Housing Development Corporation. Thanks for being here, Lee. Thanks, Liz, for being here as well. And happy to have an update on Assabet River Bluff and Junction Village. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. I'll apologize in advance to anyone who attended CHDC's meeting this morning, because a lot of this will be repetitive, but so be it. As I did this morning, I think it flows better if I start with Junction Village update. If that's all right, Keith. Sure. So with the termination of the prior Christopher Heights project, CHDC took the position that because we had Assabet River on the table and ready to move forward, that we were going to focus our attention on that and kind of table Junction Village until a later date. Since then, within the last month, we were presented with a proposal, high-level proposal from a developer who's interested in family housing on the site for, as of today, something in the range of 30 to 50 units. This was presented to the select board at their meeting a week ago Monday. just as an initial presentation and information session. So those discussions and conversations, I think, are going on amongst multiple parties. There is a neighborhood meeting tonight at 7 that the developer group that they put it together. I'm going to be attending it. So CHDC's goal, as was stated at the select board meeting at this stage, is to start a process to determine what the community support and interest is for density and use on the site. We have no preconceived notions about what that should look like. We think it's important that there is a strong level of support in town for whatever the proposal ultimately is. We haven't made any decisions certainly about the current proposal. In any event, we want to have an open and transparent process and a competitive selection process once we're able to better define what the community does support in terms of density and use. So we're interested in advancing that as quickly as we can, but the wheels of town government turn slowly, as we all know. We are CHDC, or I guess just me, we're on the agenda for the West Concord Advisory Committee on March 6th, where I will give the most current update that we have at that time, and really just try to have an open discussion, answer questions, and see what the community input is. But I think it's important from CHDC's perspective to have not only West Concord's perspective, but certainly the neighborhoods, the Winthrop Street neighborhoods perspective, and the town's perspective as a whole, and the select board's perspective. We'd like to go into any process with advancing a proposal with their support. So that's where we stand on that. What links into that is the town meeting warrant article that is seeking to reappropriate the $2 million that was set aside for the Christopher Heights project back to, or not back to, but to the Affordable Housing Trust. And at the time that we were talking about that, we'd say, all right, well, the trust can bank that, and maybe some of that can be used for Assabet River or whatever other eligible projects might come forward. As this has been evolving at a pretty quick rate, we're thinking now, okay, what should our priorities be? As a reminder, Assabet River is a total of 5 units, 2 that are pre-existing, 1 is occupied, 1 is not, and we want to build 3 new construction units, which will have a substantial subsidy component. The proposal for 30 to 50 units at Junction Village we expect also have a substantial subsidy component, probably much higher, but it's in theory 30 to 50 units, at least with the current proposal of SHI eligible units. So every dollar that we take away from, or that we use for Junction Village or any other project, isn't available for Assabet River. So one thing we're considering is maybe focusing on getting the 2 existing units on the SHI and potentially conveying those to the Concord Housing Authority for them to manage on an ongoing basis. And then depending on the source or the availability of funds, perhaps even land banking the remainder of the undeveloped area for the future once funds, a source of funds becomes available. And we are starting to advance an application for a planned residential development, or PRD process there, that would basically split the 1 acre into 2 lots, so that the housing authority, if we go that direction, could have ownership of the lot, 1 lot with the 2 units, and we'd have a set aside for the 3 unit development parcel. I know I just said a lot. I think that's most of
One One question
What
I
have I
have,
left out?
does the $500,000 that the CPC is posed to award for Assabet at the April town meeting, does that get you as far as you need to go, or would you need additional funds beyond that for Assabet?
So we're seeking that for what we call pre-development. And that's a pretty broad range of uses. Further planning probably would cover this PRD application, potentially site clearing, further examination of septic, things of that nature, any easements that might be required. So, that's really just kind of presumably getting us up, and not that we'd necessarily use all 500, but getting us to a position where we're ready to seek solicitations from developers for the remaining 3 units.
But I guess
Does that get the 2 existing houses rehabbed? And ready?
I believe our application does include rehabilitation and improvements to the existing units.
So that money would get us the 2 units to the housing authority and on the SH.
I think it should, yes.
Right, so if the vision is to split the 1 acre into two lots, and then essentially determine and then get back to the 3 additional units on the second of 2 lots, that can you do the 500,000 that you'll get at town meeting will be enough for you to complete the 2 family and get those counted on the SHI, as well as having doing the PRD to divide up the.
I think it should, yes.
Okay.
Liz, do you want to weigh in on that at all?
I just wanted to be sure that everyone knows that one of the units is occupied, and the CHDC is not intending to prematurely terminate the lease. So there's 1 unit that will go to the SHI, and then wait to see on the second unit when it would go to the SHI. But I think the plan would continue anyway.
Right. So from a timing standpoint, you may not spend all of that money if there's some. If some of that 500,000 is to rehab the unit that's occupied.
Well, I think that there's a lot of the heating systems, for example, can be done while the person's there. Just like if you were your own homeowner, you can do
the
some
roof.
of these things in the roof, and so yeah. And I think the idea was to do some site work in the back areas.
Right. Marcia?
I just want to caution that if your driveway, though, is going across the land that you're thinking of conveying to the Concord Housing Authority, you really need to be careful, because you're going to have to go through some kind of PRD process to have that happen, and to make sure that the easements are in place or whatever before all of this is done. So I'm just urging caution and make sure that you don't overpromise something.
Yeah, it would come with that easement there, as well as when we met last week, I think it was last week, to resolve the water design, and so to see what's needed there too. There's definitely some work to do, yes.
So what am I? Mike, go ahead. Can't hear you. Can you unmute?
I'm going to slightly change the subject, so continue your thought.
Okay, so is it safe to say, Lee, that the $3 million that the trust hopes to have, the balance that we hope to have at the end of town meeting, it's CHDC's priority that $3 million, all of it, be used for Junction Village?
We haven't gotten that far. I mean, this is literally happened in the last week.
Yeah.
I did mention, the way I put it was, every dollar that goes to Junction Village or elsewhere is a dollar that's not available for us at River, but
Right.
we just really haven't gotten that far.
At a minimum, that if that $500,000 you'll get in Article 28, I think it is, of town meeting for Assabet, that will be all you're going to be seeking or needing for Assabet in the short term, or in the near
Right, and
future anyway.
Right, and I think the important point there is that probably none of those funds are going to be used for any kind of subsidy for the 3-unit development process to
Mhm.
offset development costs to allow them to be affordable units, which was always the case. But I'm just making that clear.
Yeah, you're going to
Yeah.
need additional funds in order,
Right.
at some point, in order to achieve that. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, and I'm sure you'll be going back to the CPC to make sure that they're all okay with that approach as well. This is my nightly call from my grandson on FaceTime, so I will, his grandmother is going to pick up in the other room, so.
My quick question was to Lee. Lee is the developer for Junction Village, a local developer.
I think they're Boston based, but let me be clear, they have not been selected. They're just the
No,
first
I
ones to
understand.
have, yeah.
The
I
ones
believe
that
they're
made it.
Boston based, but a somewhat national outfit has thousands of units around the country that are all, I think they're a nonprofit, and their goal is to increase the inventory of affordable housing across the country.
Right, thank you.
But Todd Benjamin, I think I saw him. Yeah, I see
There
him.
he is, there's Todd.
If you had, he's representing the developer group, so I'd certainly direct any more specific questions to him if you'd like.
Yeah, they are at the Preservation of Affordable Housing. It's a nationally recognized nonprofit. They're based in Boston. Massachusetts is the state in which they've done the most projects. They do rural projects, suburban projects, urban projects, and they also manage the properties that they construct as well. So they have a strong history in terms of construction and management, and as well as a strong balance sheet with which to get projects finished and operating. So they have about over 13,000 units total in their portfolio, and some of the projects they do are as small as 30 units, and some are quite a bit larger. So,
Todd, what did Lee mean when he said you were representing them?
so when the Junction Village project, the Christopher Heights project, ceased to be moving forward, after a few weeks, I just said, let's have some exploratory conversations, and let's see if there's a way to resurrect some interest in the project so that we can move forward, because it's such a valuable parcel. And so I reached out to some folks in the development world based on my experience in the affordable housing space, both professionally and my board experiences and such. And I had worked with POA in the past in terms of dealing with portfolio management. So in that context, I reached out to them. We had some high-level conversations just as to what, if they'd be interested in the possibility, et cetera. And so they expressed an interest in that. And so we're kind of doing this together. I mean, obviously, I want to see this parcel come to fruition, because as a resident of Concord, and we all know the dire need of affordable housing here in town, but I also have a professional interest in the project as well. I realize that in order to do a project like this as quickly as possible, but yet to also do it as thoroughly and transparently as possible, it's going to take a tremendous amount of work. So I've put aside some of the other things I've been working on, and I'm focusing on what I can do to move this along, and hopefully it works out.
Thank you.
Thanks, Todd. Are there other, so Lee, what have you, has CHTC thought about what its timetable will be in making a determination of, are you going to issue an RFP or an invitation for qualifications or something for the development community to express interest, which you'll gauge in a competitive fashion? Or what's your thought about how are you going to proceed with two?
We do want to engage in a competitive solicitation, either a request for proposals, which has really a narrow description of what we're looking for in terms of use and density. That assumes that we think there's sufficient consensus in town as to what that should be. If we can't reach consensus on that, we're thinking about broadening the solicitation to a request for proposals that would have the development community just propose anything they wanted, just given the use restrictions, which are limited to affordable housing and open space. And, you know, based on the acreage and the other site constraints, and propose whatever they might like, and then re-engage with the community to try to seek consensus again. We did at our meeting this morning dust off some conceptual plans that CHDC received when we began what resulted in the Christopher Heights project roughly 10 years ago, which was really kind of a broad range. I don't know if you wanted to share any of that in this meeting or not, up to you, but it's just an example of what we received in the past. And that was, I think, pursuant, this is before my time on the board, but I think it was pursuant to a broad request for proposals that pretty much had a blank slate.
Is this a,
I believe so.
yeah, these were
And-
some of the, let's see, one of them was from POA here. This is a POA. And these are just conceptual plans that came from a number of the proposers back when. This is, you know, a decade ago.
Right.
It's
Right.
just sort of a flavor of the sorts of things that you were looking at, site plans and so forth. And you'll
This is probably along the lines of what we would expect to see if it was a blank slate request for proposals versus we want to see between X and Y number of units on this area with another area being set aside for open space, or, you know, I'm making this up, but
Right.
something that it's broad rather than more focused. And that's really going to depend on what we hear from the community. We're starting that tonight, not counting the select board meeting last week. And it was asked of me this morning, well, how long do you see that going? How many meetings, et cetera? And my response was, we'll know it when we see it, which, you know, maybe isn't satisfying, but it's hard to predict. I don't want to say we're having 3 meetings and that's it. Like, we'll take it one meeting at a time.
Right. It depends. It probably depends on the volume level, and whatever technical issues you find are raised and not resolved easily.
Right.
So,
The good news is, you know, a lot of the legwork's been done already with the prior development proposals. So we've got a lot of data on board. You know, certainly any developer is going to have to do their own diligence, but we know a lot about the site.
Yeah.
You know, we don't know everything, but
Yeah.
you know, it's a lot of the legwork's been done.
yeah. Right. Well, I appreciate the commitment to a public process. I know many of us on the call, I know I'd be very interested in attending, you know, community forums, including meetings with the neighbors. I'm sorry, I happen not to be available for tonight on short notice, but as there are other opportunities, please keep the trust in mind. This, you know, this property was our number one priority just a few months ago, and
It may be again.
fallen off.
So the meeting tonight, I just found out about it this morning. I'll let Todd correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's just probably with a small group of Winthrop Ave residents, and you know, I'll say whatever I'm given time to say, but it's really Todd's show tonight. But other than the WCAC and the select board, I'd welcome any suggestions from the group here tonight for any other target audiences, if you will, or other appropriate venues to continue community discussions.
You know, and to Lee's point, the meeting tonight was actually was finalized on Monday, so a very recent development in terms of getting something on the calendar. And it's really just to have a high level conceptual just conversation, just to, you know, share some thoughts with the neighbors, but more importantly to listen to the neighbors and hear what their thoughts are on what they would like to see on that parcel. And just also just to make sure that they're not blindsided if they start to hear about any conversations, just conceptual conversations that may be going on, given the conversation with the CHDC or given the conversation with the select board. So, just really kind of just taking the temperature, just having a very casual, high level conversation is really the goal, the intention of tonight.
They were a group that was quite opposed to the development on that land early on, before it settled on Christopher Heights. Lee, I'd reach out to the League of Women Voters. They've got a housing subcommittee and they're real good about getting folks together. That would, I think, be a good way to broaden the audience.
I would
Yeah,
also,
thank you.
sorry, Michael. I would also suggest you reach out to the climate activists and particularly Mothers Out Front. I think they are prepared to support affordable housing. And I think we could use some younger people supporting this movement. They're obviously going to have some expectations about, the construction of this facility and how climate friendly it is. But I think, talking to them early on and before you write an RFP might be a good idea.
Right, thank you. And that is one thing that that POA focuses on is a high level of sustainability. They've actually constructed, I believe it's the first truly passive affordable home in Massachusetts. I may be wrong on some of the details, but anyway, they're very focused on that, and so I think that would resonate very well with having a conversation like you suggested.
Yeah. POA's name
If you want, I can put you in touch with our board member who's sort of a liaison.
Thanks, Rich. Yeah, POA's name came up at a meeting I was chairing this morning. The MAPC Legislative Committee were getting a briefing on Zero Carbon Renovation Fund, and a prime example was the Salem Heights Apartments that POA is doing with to rehab an old building, but they were highly thought of in terms of sustainability objectives.
Is that in Salem?
Yes, yeah, Salem Heights Apartments. It's a rehab though, but in any event, very good. Well, please, are there other questions of Lee or CHDC before we move on? I really appreciate getting this briefing. I was glad to be able to attend the CHDC meeting this morning, and appreciate the thoughtful approach that they are undertaking here. And I think we're all on the same page that whatever is the most that we can do, and as soon as possible is the right thing for us to do, and to work together and figure out what's the best development for the community. So thank you all for your commitment to that.
Sure. Thanks for having us, and I appreciate the collaborative effort, and I look forward to working with you all.
Thanks so much. Next item is Concord Housing Authority and 1031 Main Street. And at our last meeting on the 26th of January, we gave our preliminary approval for $50,000 and some pre-development, pre-construction work contingent upon a grant agreement. And we can report in that we're working on the grant agreement with Carrie's help, permission. Town council has drafted a form of a grant agreement between the trust and the housing authority, following a model that I think council had drafted, that the Community Preservation Committee uses as its non-town grant agreement. and we are looking to those procedures that are adopted by the Community Preservation Committee as a model for the things that we want to do and put into place for our process. So I appreciate town council doing that. Our Rich Feely on our group was taking a lead in doing the substance of what conditions might look like. Rick Eifler and others were working on that on the Housing Authority side. And I'll share that during the course of those discussions, we focused on one of the points that was raised at our initial meeting, and that was the concern about the access that the property has to a roadway, what would typically blur it out as a public way, but to a public or private way. What's the access? What's the means of egress? And that what we're talking about here is adding a second unit onto a property and ensuring that there's the ability legally and technically to add that unit is an issue that we think we might need some before we can finalize a grant agreement. We would probably appreciate, I know we would appreciate very much if the town staff who normally review such things, and I don't know if that's the planning department or if it's highway or whatever, but when you look at questions of does a lot have access that allows it to be buildable, or can you add a second structure on it? I think it would be helpful for us to at least to have a preliminary discussion with whatever town staff are charged with reviewing that informal, really, just so that we can know what this project would be up against, what the hurdles are. Because the last thing we'd want to do is to spend the $50,000 just on answering the question about access. I think that's where we are now.
Keith,
So,
Keith, if I
yeah,
may,
Marcia?
we've had a preliminary conversation. It's really not town staff that has to do this. It is whoever's trying to develop something, and we can review whatever they put together, but we don't do that necessarily. It will require going back through the records, and I believe Rick has already started that process. So,
yeah, do you want me to weigh in or no?
Yeah, you can weigh in. I mean, my immediate reaction would be, well, we're all volunteers, and the point at which we're doing, and I'm just going to hold my tongue there. So go ahead, Britt.
Yeah. So I think the thing I'd like to have the town weigh in on is whether the town would be on board at the idea, or could at least review the idea of the town accepting the first 125 feet of Staffordshire Lane as a public way, which would give us clear access to a public way to build our new unit on Staffordshire Lane, without purchasing or agreeing, coming up with a complicated agreement with Concord Village.
okay. That's a significant process. It requires laying out the way, providing that documentation to the Public Works Commission, and the planning board also has to weigh in on that. And then it's a town meeting vote as to whether it is accepted as a way or not. So it requires significant engineering drawings be prepared to the level and degree that the engineering division would require. It's a lengthy process.
You think it's more than a year?
It would not be taken up until annual town meeting of 2024.
Yeah, that would be fine. So should we investigate that informally, or should we
Yeah.
submit
Yes.
a
No,
petition?
I mean, I'm happy to lay out the process and introduce you to whomever you will need to talk to, but I can do that.
Yeah, I think that would be good. It's not, we're not looking for someone to do the work. We're looking for us to understand what work needs to be done, and frankly, what answers the town would need to get in order for the project to get a go ahead, from which we can then make an informed decision. Well, we can't even hope to reach that standard, the standard that the town would require. So, or to know, well, that seems to be an achievable goal, but we're going to have to spend some money on it. And just a practical issue, just with this as an example, that would we need to actually do a mock-up of what the housing development is in order to know whether you can get access. I mean, do we have to? Would the housing authority need to pursue both the access and the the schematic and development of what the second dwelling would look like, in order for the town to be able to give its approval? I think we're just looking to have some understanding like that.
I think to get an agreement with Concord Village, we would have to design the project pretty fairly completely for them to agree to something. I think for the town to accept the road as a public way, I think that's a request that they can handle irregardless of what we do on the property.
Okay, so if we may, we'll just have an offline discussion with Marcia. Lee, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. Just first, an initial question is the discussion, I see 2 boxes on the site. Is the idea to develop the rear one into affordable housing units?
This is the existing garage on the site. The idea is to tear that down and build something of approximately the same footprint right behind it, with access off of Staffordshire Lane and 3 parking places right here. That's about as far as our design concept goes at this point. It would be a 1-bedroom, handicap accessible, affordable house, owned by the housing authority, owned and rented by the housing authority. This is one of our 18 project-based voucher sites. So presumably we do another project-based voucher on the new 1-bedroom unit.
So the housing authority owns the other box already?
Yes, we own 1031 Main Street.
Yeah, just based on my
Concord Housing LLC. We have a LLC arm of housing authority.
just based on my professional experience, my guess is it wasn't submitted for approval as a public way, just because it probably doesn't meet the town standards dimensionally or otherwise. And I'd suggest that it might be a lot easier road, though I can't speak to the financial implications of seeking an easement just for basically a curb cut, if you will, driveway for that one unit, which, hopefully they'd be receptive to.
Yeah, they weren't real receptive to the project in our initial meeting with them. So just we've had one meeting. We'll keep them, informed every time we have a public meeting. But I'm hoping they like the idea of not having to maintain this initial road anymore, because there's some confusion with the town as to who maintains it and who plows it and such. And they have been under the impression that it's a town road for a long time. They claim that the town plows it. The town claims they don't. So there's a lot of confusion about that initial stretch of Staffordshire Lane. There's a sign at this point that says private, do not enter. So it seems like kind of a natural setup to formalize what's been the informal look of the road at this point. And I don't see why the town couldn't design a 125-foot stretch of road and bring it up to standards and simplify an awful lot of things for everybody.
It won't be cheap.
Okay. Thanks, Lee. Carrie?
Yeah, so if I could just weigh in here, we have a handful of neighborhoods that are looking for towns to accept private ways. And as I understand it, we don't have a formal process that has been established. And the Public Works Commission has actually had conversations recently about this. I don't know if I'm incorrect, Marcia, but I do know that this has implications in other places, probably including the White Pond area, Keith, which you might be familiar with.
Right.
And
Except
many
we-
of,
yeah.
if I may, and many of these developments have right on their plans that they will never come to town meeting to be accepted as public ways. So I have not, this was all done prior to my working for the town. I've never researched it. It will require going back through the records.
Just for your information, the 1019 Main Street, we don't have a written into any of the deeds that I saw for 1031, any rights to Staffordshire Lane, but 1019 in their deed has rights for passage over this 40-foot section. And it says in the deed until such time it becomes a public highway. So there is at least a reference to the intention of this someday becoming a public way. That may be the only reference ever. But there may also be plans. I can only get a hold of deeds going to the registry site. I can't seem to use their search well enough to find plans, but there are also plans that I've never seen that somebody who's better at searching the Middlesex South Registry of Deeds might be able to dig up.
And that
I'd be looking at whatever development agreement was and the permitting documentation for that condominium project. It would probably be in there.
It is. It's a special permit, and all they say is it'll be a private way. There's no.
There you go.
It doesn't say it's going to always be a private way. It doesn't say who maintains it. Doesn't say anything other than it's going to be a private way.
why don't you go get a curb cut on Main Street? Is that Route 62?
I don't think we get a curb cut permit to be that close to an intersection on that busiest street.
Yeah, well, it's an intersection to a road that doesn't exist, right?
The road exists as a private way. It's an intersection.
If it were an easy problem to solve, it would have been solved before now. So we're gonna continue to work on this.
In terms of precedent for White Pond, I do think the Housing Authority has special ability to ask the select board for things and for the select board to support us. It's also in the name of affordable housing in the housing production plan, which I don't think is going to be the case on any of the other public ways that people are asking for. So I think it's in support of the housing production plan. The only reason the Housing Authority is even looking at this is because of the housing production plan and the goal of the town to create affordable housing. The town is not doing this for us, it's doing it for the housing production plan. I did want to make that clear. If you want us to drop pursuing this, we'll drop pursuing this.
So I don't want to suggest that we're not willing to look at this. It's just, it's not as simple as just accepting.
No, I know. I've read the process.
Yeah.
I've seen the application. I've looked at the 78-page document that's put out by the Society of Engineers or whoever made that document. So I know it's a process. But seems to me it can be done. So there's an awful lot of roads that were created. And this is 125 feet more. And it's for a good purpose. So
let's see, Rich, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's not $50,000. I don't want to fold on this one, nor do I want it to go on for years. If it can't be done, we should move on and, work with the authority on other sites. So my question is, should we come up with a little money to do whatever it takes, including maybe an engineering cost estimate of is it feasible to make this a public way? And if so, how much would it cost? And I think, the trust ought to make that money available to the authority if it would help them make a decision, this is a go or a no-go.
No, it's the town's, if we went this route, it would be the town's work to lay out the road.
Yeah, but, what we just heard is, the town is reluctant to do this. Can we?
Yeah, if they don't want to do it, if they, deny the petition for the public way, then it becomes a local problem that we would have to do a lot of design work. So I think it's worth at least pursuing this for a month and just see what everybody says. And then visit it again.
So I guess, could I reiterate again, I'm not suggesting that the town is not interested in looking at this. This is the first I'm hearing of this. I think it would be helpful if we could have an internal conversation to understand what we would need to do before anybody is suggesting that the town is not interested and or that the trust is willing to put up money. If we could have, the trust is meeting about every 2 weeks. If we could have 2 weeks to just take a look at this internally and report back at the next meeting, I think that would be helpful.
Great, that sounds great.
That sounds great.
Thank you. So we'll take the town up on that offer and happy to explore it. So thanks all. And happy to do what we can to solve it offline with town staff, to just so we know what the issues are. Thank you. The next item I have is anything else from the Housing Authority? We're all set? Okay, we're all set. And thanks for being here. Quick update on sources of funding for the trust, that there are, as we mentioned last time, I think that the housing docket numbers have been issued for the home rule petitions. Also for the LOHA Coalition, a local option real estate transfer fee. All three of Concord state legislators have now co-sponsored the LOHA real estate transfer fee proposal, according to the website, the state legislative website. So that's great. And we'll be going to town meeting, as I mentioned earlier, for funding for the trust. So that's great, April 30th. And there are public hearings that are taking place in the meantime. In fact, we will want to cover, I guess I would ask Carrie that for if there's assistance needed from the trust for you've got the town has Article 28, the CPC is Article 29, or maybe it's the reverse, for transferring funds to the trust. If we can help in any way for the public hearings and so forth, just let us know. We'll be at the public hearings. If we need help present, we can do that too. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Public comment. Do we have any public comment tonight?
Keith, I'm sorry, I've got to go.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thanks, Rich. It's 6:05. No public comment. Actually, we're well, schedule next meeting. Can we pick a time for maybe in a couple of weeks that we could get together? Today is the 8th. 22nd is well, it's Ash Wednesday, but I can get the ashes on at noontime.
It's also school vacation week.
School vacation week. Which may not affect folks here, but what works for you, Carrie? Does the 22nd work or another week?
21st or 22nd works that week.
Okay. What about others on the call? Can you do the 21st or 22nd? Or is 5 o'clock okay, or 6 o'clock? Carrie, which would you prefer?
You know, right now, either one works.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mike or Linda?
Either day I can make work.
Okay,
I'd just soon do 5.
yeah. Yeah, I do 5, yeah, I have to eat early if it's 6, and right now, and my dinner will be, we're timed it for 6:30 tonight, so. Linda, is 5 o'clock okay on the 21st or 22nd? Yes, or,
That's good, yeah.
okay, very good. So Carrie's choice,
Oh,
21st or 22nd?
it doesn't matter.
We'll say 22nd then, just because it's a Wednesday.
Whichever one you pick, somebody else will want to schedule a meeting at that time.
Well, probably, okay, so 5 p.m. on Wednesday, February 22nd. That's our target date for the next meeting. Thank you all. And is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And is that a second by Linda?
Second, yeah.
Okay, all in, and roll call, Linda,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Rich is gone, Carrie,
Aye.
and Keith. Aye, so it's 4-0. It is, we are adjourned at 6:08. Thank you very, very much to the town of Concord, Carrie, for your support of all we're doing with housing. Really, really very grateful. And thanks to all of our volunteers for all the work we're doing. Take
Bye,
care.
everyone.
Thank